So we finally get to part 3 of this series, which is better, Medigap or Medicare Advantage Plans. So if you missed the first 2 parts, 1 or part 2, you can check those out to get a further description and more in-depth description about Medicare Advantage Plans and Medicare Supplement Plans. So go check those out. And this video, we're gonna get to a final decision, which one is better once and for all. Well, sort of. Now this is Michael's Medicare, where we talk about all things Medicare, from plans to benefits to enrollment periods, extra help, prescription drug coverage, Medigap, and really the whole kit and caboodle that is Medicare. But before we get to it, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because it'll keep you up to date about the newest Medicare changes, the newest Medicare options, and ways to make more, better informed Medicare decisions. All right, here we go. All right, so we covered this in the previous 2 videos, but we're gonna do a very quick synopsis here and talk about why there's a need for either the Medicare Supplement Plans or Medigap plans or Medicare Advantage Plans. And the primary reason, of course, is gonna be because of what is not covered by Medicare. This is because original Medicare, which is composed of both Medicare Part A and Medicare Part B, they do have very significant coverage. It's good. Medicare Part A covers hospitalization costs that somebody would have from being admitted into the hospital or having like a big surgery or spending multiple nights in the hospital, and those costs are covered under Medicare Part A up to a point. But there is not a cap to the total yearly cost, but rather there is a per benefit deductible as well as daily rates for each day that a person spends in the hospital up to a limited amount. And then beyond that, the beneficiary is responsible for 100%. Under Medicare Part B, the costs associated with daily healthcare are covered under this section. So that could be things like doctor's visits, lab work, x-rays, physical therapy, medications that are administered in the doctor's office. So not the ones you get with prescriptions, but the one you get at the doctor's office. Those are all covered under Medicare Part B. The coverage consists of a yearly deductible as well as a share of costs or a co-insurance, where Medicare pays roughly around 80% of the cost, so the Medicare beneficiary is responsible for that remaining 20%. But like with Medicare Part A, there is no ultimate limit to the costs that can have to be paid. I mean, it just means that you end up paying 20% of whatever that total cost is, which, well, I mean, that could be a lot. So there are some definite holes in the original Medicare coverage that could end up leaving a Medicare beneficiary, if they don't have any additional coverage like a Medigap or Medicare Advantage plans, could leave them in pretty rough financial straits if they just only have original Medicare. Also not covered by Medicare is most prescription drugs. So that would be prescriptions that get picked up at the pharmacy. And I guess at the time, it probably just wasn't a really big expense for folks back in the 1960s when the program was invented. So it just kind of got left out. When we start talking about Medicare Advantage and Medicare Supplement plans, it's kind of basically 2 alternate philosophies on how to cover the remaining parts not covered by original Medicare. Medicare Supplement is built as an additional coverage that gets added on top of original Medicare. So original Medicare stays the primary payer, while Medigap plans or Medicare Supplement plans basically covers whatever is not paid by Medicare, literally paying for the gaps, like the holes in original Medicare. It is a private health insurance plan run by some of the largest health insurance companies out there, and it has additional monthly costs on top of whatever the Medicare Part B premiums are. And those costs can range pretty wildly depending on the level of coverage under the Medicare Supplement plan that someone decides to get. So for example, if they want a smaller portion of those holes that Medicare does not cover paid for, like a Plan A, the most minimum of coverage, those are gonna be less expensive. But if they want to have a much larger portion of those parts not covered by original Medicare covered, they might get a Plan G and get almost all of the costs not paid by Medicare covered, but of course, those are considerably more expensive and more comprehensive. In general, the way I like to think about it is basically the less you pay monthly, the more you pay when you utilize the services, and vice versa. So the more you pay monthly, the less you pay when you utilize those services. Medicare Advantage plans, on the other hand, are really more of a replacement for original Medicare, where Medicare is still there, sure, it is still there, but it becomes the secondary payer after the Medicare Advantage plan. What this means in practice is that all the standard Medicare benefits are still going to be covered under the Medicare Advantage plan, which is run by a private health insurance company, and they're going to be administered under the healthcare plan, most oftentimes through doctors that are in network and under a health maintenance organization or an HMO plan, which can mean that there are limits to the doctors and the hospitals and the clinics that may be accessible under the Medicare Advantage plan. But in exchange for having these limits on the doctors that can be seen in the hospitals and the networks, the payment structure under a Medicare Advantage plan can look very, very appealing because there usually is a deductible and copays for doctor's visits, co-insurances, and a yearly annual limit on the out-of-pocket costs that a Medicare beneficiary can have. Also, sometimes those copays can be $0 when you go see the doctor. Furthermore, an MAPD plan includes a Part D coverage. So for prescription drug coverage, that is all kind of sort of put together, just tacked on to the end of the Medicare Advantage plan and run all under the same roof by the same insurance company. So you just have to make one phone call when something goes wrong. All right, so that is gonna be the groundwork for this next topic here of which one is better. And again, if you want a fuller explanation, go check out both Part 1 and Part 2 of this theory, because this is Part 3. But when we are meeting with clients and we're discussing which plan is better, really it revolves around what specific situation a client is in, because each plan is going to have trade-offs about which one works best for that specific person. For example, a Medigap plan or a Medicare Supplement plan, well, they're going to be a great option for someone who wants to be able to keep the very wide doctor availability that is under original Medicare, because Medicare supplements are just additional coverage on top of original Medicare. So Medicare stays the primary payer, and when they go see the doctor, wherever it is, whether it's here in California or whether it's in Wisconsin or Omaha, Nebraska, as long as that doctor takes Medicare, that client will be able to see them, and the Medicare supplement will cover the costs that are just not covered by original Medicare. So that is the biggest reason why someone would want to enroll in a Medicare supplement. A specific situation we had recently was a client who was pending a kidney transplant, and I guess it's really hard to get a kidney here in California. I think they're all spoken for, so it's pretty difficult. But they wanted to get a Medigap plan because it would allow them to go somewhere else in the country if a kidney popped up in a different state. They'd be able to use their Medicare coverage wherever that happened to be. And if it had been with a Medicare Advantage plan, especially an HMO plan, then they would have had to get approval to go out of state in a timely manner, and that is not always guaranteed, and the approval isn't always guaranteed. Or maybe they would have had to just wait in California for a kidney, and that line is quite long. So they opted to get a Medigap plan because it would give them that freedom to go anywhere in the country where a kidney popped up and they could get one. Another situation we had were clients who were a husband and wife who would spend most of their year in their RV following their daughter's college sports team around the country. And they wanted to ensure that they could get their healthcare needs met while they were in whatever state and whatever terminate they happened to be in. So not having that doctor's network, not having the HMO, having kind of a wide open provider group that they can go see wherever they are was a big advantage to these folks, and that's why they opted into a Medicare supplement plan and to pay the extra cost. But the downside to a Medicare supplement plan, like I just mentioned, is going to be the cost. This is because in order to have a Medicare supplement plan, it's required to keep Medicare Part A and Part B, and that's the same for both of them, but it means you're still going to be paying at least a minimum of $174.70 a month. But the Medigap plans can run between that amount, even more, way more a month, in addition to that Part B premium. Additionally, since it does not cover prescription drugs, that would mean there'd be another additional monthly cost added on to have prescription drug coverage through a PDP or Medicare Part D plan. But these folks in both situations felt that the benefits outweighed the cost, the literal cost, to have that additional coverage to go anywhere in the country, and opted into the Medicare supplement plan. For us specifically, we find that the majority of our clients opt into a Medicare Advantage plan despite the doctor's limitation and despite the managed care, because they tend to be on fixed budgets. And for most of them, they are concerned about the monthly cost for the healthcare rather than their doctor's selection. Additionally, as an added benefit or perk to being here in a major metropolitan area in Los Angeles, but also big cities in general, it is common for Medicare Advantage plans, even as managed plans, to have the largest and most popular doctors, networks, and clinics in network. So it's not as big of a deal of having a hard time to find a doctor or a specialty as it may be in a more suburban or rural type of area. Furthermore, with the inclusion of the Medicare Part D benefits for prescription drugs and the fact that most of the MAPD plans here in Southern California do not have a monthly premium, it makes the Medicare Advantage plan a choice that will monthly cost folks a lot less, even if it's at the expense of the doctors. But that is a trade-off that, again, a majority of our clients choose to make. So ultimately, when we ask which one is better, is it better to get a Medicare supplement plan, or is it better to get a Medicare Advantage plan? The question is really more about trade-offs than which one is perfect. I often describe it like a Rubik's Cube, where we are trying to get all the doctors, all the medications, and all the benefits and all the costs on one side that makes sense for the client, but oftentimes there's still a few blocks kind of left over that you just can never get on the right side. And those are decisions that clients have to understand the risk of what those decisions are and have to make them knowingly about what that could mean for their healthcare situation. Folks can do that on their own, but of course it never hurts to get a little bit of help from a professional if you're trying to decide. All right, so that's gonna be it for today's Michael's Medicare. And if you have additional questions or you wanna get more information about your specific situation, feel free to reach out to us at the information down below in the comments. Give us a call. Check us out on our other great videos on the YouTube, on Instagram, on the socials. We have amazing Medicare content coming out every single week. So for Michael's Medicare, I'm Michael, hoping that you have a great rest of your day, and goodbye.